Hello everybody, Carrie Ian Jackson here, aka But Ugly Hollywood. We have an interview for you today. I think you're going to be very intrigued on this interview. So just stay, watch this, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Okay, without further ado, let's get started.
My name is Paul Joseph Burwell. Well, I'm from a dead little place called Decatur. I'm one of the few lucky ones that actually escaped. Sue Bielenberg was a childhood friend, my soulmate, a shining light to the world, one of the most genuine, heartfelt people I've probably ever met. Big part of my life. She's a big part of my life. It was not as much as it had been in her career. She was kind of in a limbo state where she was still working, but not the higher level stuff that she wanted to be doing. She was doing art to pay the bills, not because that's what she wanted to do. Oh, that had been in the 70s sometimes, probably. And that was even before she even started drawing, really. When I first met her, it was like the first grade, and only got to really be around her for about 3 weeks before she transferred schools. But I kind of ran into her as we was growing up. But then when we were in junior high, we kind of reconnected. So there's a little bit of a story of a history there where we didn't have very many friends, but she was truly one of my real friends. There's only maybe how many people you know in high school that were truly your friends that you actually really kept up with? Amazing thing about Sue is that she could follow and drop in almost any point of production of a series that was already enacted, whether it be cleanup, design, writing, coloring. There's a whole bunch of facets when it comes to that, especially at that point in time, because a lot of stuff was based off cells, and you've got whole different departments where she was art director in some of them, the full range. That's what the amazing thing was. There wasn't just about anything she really couldn't do when it come to the process of that. The newer stuff that was coming up, the way they do things, she was kind of caught up on that, but she really didn't have too many opportunities to work with those formats, so that's what was left to be seen. But as far as everything she did, like I said, she could do it all, everything from character design to art direction to coloring to you name it. And she knew how to do it the old school way, and came from out of the middle of nowhere, basically kind of buffaloed her way in. She was kind of what you would consider the odd kid out. Most of the people who come into that usually have some sort of backing or something, where she had nothing. She came out here on a wing and a prayer. Her belief in herself and her art, that she could get a job doing something in the animation industry, and she manifested it to be. Her honesty. She didn't have a fibbing bone in her body. You could not get her to go against her morals, what she knew. She was staunch about that, and she was highly intelligent. She was and eloquent, very eloquent on top of that. She just had a way about her that it was almost otherworldly. And just like I said, she's one of the most compassionate people. She could almost deal with almost anybody on any level. And that's one thing, a lot of people, if you talk to people who actually know her, she was always there to listen. If you had a problem, it didn't matter what time, whatever, she would get to that and you would deal with that problem. She would talk it out with you and help you find a solution. It didn't matter who you were. If you were truly in need and you reached out to her, she would make a time out of her no matter what. And a lot of times, I think that's one of what made her kind of successful, is she burned that candle at both ends, broke it in half, and burnt 4 pieces. She worked on everything and anything she could, no matter how high profile or low profile it was. She was on it. There was definitely no moss on that stone. I have to say Simpsons, probably, because I think she was there the longest and like just did everything when she worked in the Simpsons. There's horror stories I can tell you to get people in trouble that she told me, but that's for like after some people ain't here no more maybe. It was almost like a fairy tale. Actually, to tell you the truth, from the very beginning, because when we grew up, kids were just weird. That's just the way it is. Me and her got along just fine. We wasn't mean to each other. There's just so many things that goes along with that'd be a whole other video on its own. But like I said, we kind of grew up as kids, and then lucky I quit school, kind of lost me there for a while. She went on and did her thing, I went on and did my thing. Years later, we reconnected. She's the main reason I came out here. She spent a lot of time with work. You had to be a special type of person to actually be in a relationship with her. She had a lot going on. You couldn't be really needy. You had to rely on her for anything because she had enough of what she struggled with just to get through the day to get her work done. And there was like I said, she was involved in a lot of things that had really nothing to do with her. It had to deal with solving problems, and a lot of that stuff is not paid for. It's not the only like satisfaction or anything that she got out of it was like part of that. So a lot of time, like I said, didn't spend a lot of time chit-chatting. In the mornings early, every once in a while we'd say something to each other. And of course, we's always sending each other stupid little things to media. Of course, at night we had like a little bit of time. Whenever she'd go like do a gig somewhere and had to go drive away far somewhere, I'd go with her, sometimes help her set up, and I'd go hike around, and come back, help her load up, we'd go get something to eat. We'd act like kids again, and that's one thing. It didn't matter what we were doing. Like if we were going somewhere and had to ride a bus or something, we were just like we were kids again. When we were kids, they had to separate us a lot. We'd sit around and talk. Everybody, that's the thing about like when we was growing up. Everybody's talking smack about somebody somehow, something somewhere. We sat around talking smack, making fun of everybody else, basically. That was like the big joke. She already was set in her ways when she was young. She wasn't staying there. She was coming out here and she was going to get an animation. She started that journey. She came out here on a wing and a prayer. And that's exactly what she did. She worked her way from the bottom to where she was at. But she was always talented when it comes to as far as like being able to draw as an artist. That was apparent. One of the things she used to do to make money in junior high was draw naked pictures and sell to all the boys, $5 or $10 a pop. That was her hustle. I mean, she was good enough to draw stuff like that. That was like one of her first early hustles was doing that. You'd be surprised how much money she did that. So yeah, you could say her artwork had like a really, really, really powerful influence right from the very beginning. So from like the Benar all the way up to like the beautiful things she did, doing that and the impact she had on some artists have an impact on just a niche. She was involved in so many things that her impact was worldwide. So when we lost her, it wasn't just me that lost her, it was the whole world that lost her. Like I said, sometimes we just sit around, and she'd do that with certain people. She'd just sit around and act like teenagers at Capitol and just cut up and have a good time. I mean, and that's something a lot of people out here, I don't think it's just that industry, I think it's a lot of other industries, and it's just not out here, it's other places. They get the burnout where that kid dies, it goes away, it's all for the fun. You don't get stripped down, she never lost that. She was just constantly, there's a lot of things she worked on that nobody knows about, it's just pure genius. And she did that like up to the end. She was working on a series about me and her. So it was like something that wasn't what piece of work. It was like which one. There were so many things she did when it came to art. There's a whole series of drawings she did. She used to do like standing around and or on a bus or on a subway where she would draw people under 5 minutes, draw part of the subway where they were sitting at. And this is something she took around. And she'd do these caricatures of people like that. It was beautiful that sometimes she'd just be sitting somewhere, like I said, waiting on a bus. And she'd draw a whole corner, a couple of buildings, things like that. It was just like, she did it all. There's a whole book's worth of just her earlier works that it's just like formed on, that are like either made up imaginary or actual nude models. And there's like a whole, about a couple books of that stuff. You gotta realize, like I said, from the time she was 12, 13, she hit the ground running, producing product that she was selling from day one, and she never stopped, right to the very end. I mean, so many things. I mean, one of the last things she was doing, she was designing funerals for different Walmarts across the United States. I mean, she did like a while. She did like the whole house. Whenever you go to buy a house, there's a magazine. You always see like an artist rendition, like a painting or something. That's an actual drawing that somebody does. And she did like hundreds of those where that's just like one of the things she did a drawing. I don't think there really was any balance there. Drive to work and make money and succeed and survive kind of like almost superseded everything else. So unless you were like a very special person, it was kind of hard to have what you would consider a conventional relationship. I knew that already going in to begin with, so I was in for no surprise. Like I said, she had a lot of iron in her fire going. And not only just the work that she was working on, like I said, there was other groups and things that she was associated with, and not only to mention, like I said, just people she knew. She had an open ear for anybody. She was just a very open, connected person. Let's just say that. She's a very connected person. She was a very connected person. Very few people she met that if she didn't like somebody, there was a reason. There was something. But as far as like I said, it's like being in love with a rock star. You got a certain amount of time to do your personal life. You grab your moments that you do, and you have the life that you have, and they work on their work, and which kind of pushed me also to start doing what I got to do in order to get by, because you just can't sit around and smoke weed and make fun of everybody on Hollywood Boulevard all day, even though we did that a lot. So that's another big joke, you know. What do you guys think you're gonna do? Move to Hollywood? Yeah. Watch this. For me to start with, I basically got rid of almost a house full of stuff. Most of it PA, lights, clothes, guitars, records, fishing equipment, camping gear, vehicles, anything and everything you can think of, I either sold, burnt, or gave away. Basically, took my whole life, put it in an army duffel bag, a larger, older backpack, frame backpack, a smaller, like a one-day excursion pack, loaded up a couple little amps, guitar, all my shirts, pants, a few tools, what jewelry I had, a few knickknacks, jumped on a train, spent almost 3 days on a train. She picked me up. That point on, both our lives completely changed because all my evil ways are now a thing of the past. She made me promise I had to be honest and on the level. I couldn't do anything that you would think of might be, what's the term they use, janky, and had to do everything above barrel. So that completely changed my life. Her life, I can definitely say it changed hers. Because one of my things when I first got here, the place was a horrible mess. It was completely cluttered up. There's places she couldn't use, and I completely cleaned them out. It was like, you're not using this. What is this? Nobody will even buy it. Let's get rid of it so you can have your space. And I did that. I gave her back her space. She didn't have it all. It wasn't all a bed of roses for her out here. She was in 2 or 3 relationships that were kind of rocky and didn't go too well. But one thing she had with me is she felt safe. She knew I wasn't going to like flip out or do anything. I wasn't going to act more stupid than what I normally do. I changed a lot of my behavior and a lot of things that I used to say, my very vocabulary, the way I speak even. So yeah, it made both of our lives definitely change for the better. I can honestly say for the better. One, Hollywood, I don't know if it's in a way it's harder out here just because it costs so much. So the financial thing can like really be a strain. One, I'm trying to find both the down because there's so many good things about out here. So I'm trying to like specifically pick like the bad things about trying to have a relationship out here. I can't really think of anything because nothing was really too much of a challenge that I couldn't overcome. There was maybe like a couple times we argued over a few things, but outside of that, show me any couple that doesn't argue, there's something going on there. There's some pharmaceuticals or something. I've never seen no one ever have like a relationship and not at least argue about something once or twice or something. That's just too, I can't think of anybody I know I've never argued with at one point in time over something. I mean, but as far as challenges, like I said, the only really challenges that she had was her mobility, I think. Outside of that, anything you would associate with like Hollywood, the crowd and people and stuff like that, that's kind of like anywhere. There's always sharks in the water. So, and like I said, she's a pretty smart girl. Sue was highly intelligent. So, back where we we come from. It wasn't really, she really didn't get too much into animation until she got out here, I believe. Because back there, a lot of stuff that she did, she was more of a design artist than a graphic artist. I mean, one of her first actual jobs she had when she went to college in Champaign, she worked for Dixie Cup, which is also part of like Kleenex, and like a lot of their designs that they still use today. Those are Sue's designs. Those are her babies, and there's still stuff of that they still use. So like even from the start, you know, when she was there, she had a job doing art, and just it progressed and progressed, and she went as far as she could in Illinois. I think she went to Chicago for a while, went to art school, and did some jobs and stuff there, but it didn't really take off for her until she got out here. And then, like I said, she came out here on a wing and a prayer and basically bullshitted her way in, which back then you could get a lot of freelance being nobody if you could actually produce. So that's one thing she had in her favor. She could actually produce, and she caught on quick. So it didn't take her long to get into it. I think she more or less stayed the same person, actually, which is rare because a lot of people, when they come out here, I know I've changed. She really didn't change that much. Ability to like just jump into a situation sometimes, where when she came out here, she became a little bit more cautious. You got to realize she came out here about what I had with nobody, with nothing. She landed out here by herself, not even idea where to go. At least I had her a place to go. So that tells you the difference there. And she literally fought tooth and nail, lived in a commune for a while. Like I said, she basically hamstringed a bunch of people getting in the classes that she needed to stay in business, and had no funding, just showed up, buffaloed away, and got the funding, and just that'll tell you exactly how on the edge she was. Well, it depends on what kind of person you were. If you were truly a good person, like I said, there was nothing she wouldn't do for you. She'd go way beyond the call of duty of things. To work, like I said, you know, even with people she worked with, if they had a personal problem, they had no problem talking to her because she was just that kind of person. She was that likable. So that made her, which mostly are grounded people, which a lot of those people are. Some people who aren't so grounded kind of butted heads with. That's kind of that might be part of why things happen the way they did. A lot of men are intimidated by a strong woman, and Sue was definitely a strong woman. So if you're not used to dealing with a highly intelligent, strong woman, then I can see there being problems. And not to be sexist, it could work the other way too. There's a few women I know that she kind of had some issues with, but she really didn't put it out and would really talk bad about anybody, because that just wasn't, she was very big on karma, which was part of her appeal. Like I said, you know, perfect strangers would sometimes talk to her. So she was just very, very affable. She supported more animators in the industry and artists than she was actually like a mentor to. She didn't really like to teach. She worked very well with other artists. One of her side gigs, she used to do caricatures, where somebody would do a big organization, somebody would organize it, and they hire like 5 or 6 different artists, and she's like one of the artists that they'd always hire constantly. And she just would bring a story out of people. She would draw, when she drew people doing that, she only had like about maybe 5-6 minutes to do that. It was like volume. So she'd have to talk to them and bring their story out to make that part of personality part of what she was doing. And she like brought that to everything she did. She brought the personal level, so whatever artwork she was working on, you got exactly either what you wanted or you didn't know what you wanted. So her honesty for one, and she would just tell on herself rather than tell a lie. So if she would rather tell on herself, if it come down to it, if she had to tell on herself and she had the option to A, not tell on herself or tell on herself, she wouldn't tell on herself. But she didn't have the option, or no, you've got to tell on yourself. Tell on herself quick. So if she tell on herself, she ain't gonna hide nothing from nobody, which made her a very honest person, which a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people can't handle honesty like that. Even if she didn't really know you, if something was evident that was personal, she could read you and be like, can I bring this up and help this person, or should I? And if she would see a conflict, she wouldn't say anything. But she didn't see a conflict that was she'd bring it up. If you got a booger on your nose, she's going to tell you. You know what I'm saying? So, there's nothing about what I would want people to understand about how she was. It would be very evident that she was very free, very intelligent, very strong, even though her appearances might not came. She had an air about her to where she was like, almost like royalty almost. It's kind of hard to explain unless you actually met her and was around her. She could literally make a place light up. I mean, she had like a very good attitude. She could get along with anybody. She was just like very well informed about a lot of things. So that just like made it all, if you didn't like her, you had a problem. It wasn't her, the problem was you. And there's not too many people I can say that. I can't even say that about myself. But I'm pretty likable. You know, I got kind of like some rough edges to me, but Sue didn't have none of that. She was just, like I said, she was almost like royalty. The way she carried herself, just the tone of her voice, she was very professional. You know, outside of the time when she was acting like she was 12 with me, some of her artwork, you might see that in, but actually in person, unless you was very close to her, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see that side of her. She was just, I can't even explain it. I mean, and protective, she would go 10 miles out of her way to protect something or someone that she loved and do anything, put her own life in danger, but when it come to save herself, she couldn't. She was very pacifist, very, very pacifist. She didn't, you probably couldn't get a violent reaction out of her. It would take a lot. It would take a lot. Let me just put it that way. They always say that in times of war, we find out who we truly are when things are down. When I say war, that means just when your life's completely torn upside down. You don't have to actually go through a war, just a situation. She's just one of those people that would shine through. She wouldn't knuckle under for her beliefs. There's nothing, which could make her, like I said, could make her a hard person to work with. If you're not used to working with someone who's very strong and has certain opinions, you know, she could put hers aside, but there's certain things and principles that she would not cross. You couldn't pay her. You couldn't get her to do it at gunpoint. No. It'd take act of God, and then she probably still wouldn't. That's how defiant she was in her beliefs. God himself said, no, you got to kill to do this or something like that. She's like, no, sorry, not what I'm here for. I can almost tell you what she would say. They've lost one of the most beautiful, talented people I've ever met, have ever known. It literally lost an angel that day, because anybody who had any kind of dealings with her, 99% of them is positive. There was a talent that just, all I can say is go and look at her work, and her work will kind of tell you. I mean, there's so many different cartoon animations, whatever you want to call it, she worked on. If you hadn't seen something she worked on, then you live underneath a rock somewhere. And if it didn't bring you some kind of joy or laughter, then you weren't human. That's the best time of my life. Like I said, there's a lot of jobs that she worked that we'd had to drive for a while, and then while she was doing that, I'm off wandering around, finding whatever wild, which I'm pretty good at finding places like that, whether it's like a river or a mountain range or whatever. There's the ocean. If it's there, I'm gonna find it. There's just so many places. I've been all over LA. I've seen things, there's people who lived here their whole entire lives have no idea about. In the short time we were together, just that alone. I came here and learned how to she taught me how to navigate the city to where if I want to go somewhere, I can jump and I can get there for like $5. There you go. That's a skill all in itself. That's just me personally, but outside, you know, like all around, just between her art and her being there, a bunch of different 12-step programs. I'm not going to name any of them. That's like her business, and don't want to put nobody out, but she was part of different programs to where you got to be there for people, for you to be there for people. People to be there for you, you got to be there for them. So that's a lot of work. So if you're working like more than one program and you're working, then it's just almost phenomenal. I mean, the amount of work she put in her daily life, not her work even, just in her daily routine. So it's not like it's one of these things where you say about a person like, oh, they're great, they help people, they did this, they did. No, she did that. She'd been doing that for years before I even came out here. That was nothing new. So that just tells you she had an effect on a lot of people. Not just her art, but just her being a human being. Which, find that out here, find that anywhere, but particularly out here. Find anybody who still has their heart and soul out here. The few and far in between. That's, every time I go to the beach, which I go at least 2 or 3 times a year, she's there. Even when I'm not at the beach, I could be up in the mountains, I could be walking down the street somewhere in Studio City, and I can feel her presence. She's there. But the ocean, you know, she was a dive master. She was part of the rescue team in Santa Monica for years. She taught diving. So it wasn't like she was one of these casual people who go and play and splash. She was, even when she was younger, people couldn't understand, well, why are you into swimming and diving? We're in the Midwest, there ain't no ocean here. What are you gonna go do? Dive in the lake somewhere where it's the Great Lakes, where it's frozen and everything most of the time, and the water's like, and she had that in her, and she came out here, and that's exactly what she did. She learned how to dive. From that point, she became a dive master where she could teach, and from that point, she was part of the rescue team. Everything. I mean, she completely turned my life around. I'm like almost a completely different person just from the way I deal with things, and certain things I don't do that I used to do just in my personal life. My attitudes maybe changed a little bit, not much. She definitely led me down a road that led me to where we're at right now today. In the long run, if it wouldn't have been for her, this probably wouldn't be happening, and I wouldn't have been here. You might still be out here doing this, but chances are I wouldn't have been. Everything up to where I'm staying at now, because when she passed away, we were going through eviction. So when she passed away, it kind of like solidified all that, since it wasn't on the lease. But the place where I ended up at was directly related to her. And there's just so many things that I'm still doing today that are kind of directly linked to her. So about the only thing she didn't change me. Still smoke, still eat things I don't eat. Outside of that, everything else is gone. No longer a part of my life, no longer an issue. Things like that are, I love you and I miss you, and I hope you found peace. It's almost overwhelming. I haven't really been dealing with it the way I should be. There's so much of her art that it's almost to the point now where some of this place needs to find good homes, and I just can't like keep all of her stuff in storage forever. I mean, I got rid of a lot of her stuff. Not her art, but like personal possessions, things like that. And just some of the small things that like you wouldn't think that like meant the world to her, I still have those things. But a lot of things like clothes, some things that were work related, a lot of her supplies, I got rid of those. I mean, it's just, for me to even begin to explain the whole spectrum of how she changed my life and me, that'd be a whole nother video. For me to put it in like a nutshell, best thing that ever happened to me, truthfully, without anybody distorting any of the truth, no matter whose feelings it might hurt, who it might put in an uproar. But like I said, there's certain people I know probably deserve it. They're still in the industry to this day. There's a couple people. I was talking to one of her very good friends today, and reminded me of one horrible person. That what can you do by exposing somebody who's juiced in like that? I mean, if you know someone's a terribly horrible person, I don't really have the power to really change anything. Who am I? I'm nobody from blah, 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 blah. Who am I to smear somebody who's been in the industry and has been successful even though they're like a piece of shit person? So it's kind of like, there was a point in time, that's part of the story that hasn't been told. I was kind of like Sue's protector when we were kids. And if I had a nickel for every time I had to fight over, I'd go get a couple cheeseburgers and buy you one too, if that tells you anything. So I kind of have a chip on my shoulder against people that harmed her out here, but I made her a promise to be a good person where I can't do anything. The old me would set them out, set them up, and leave them to hang, get video of it, and show her, make a movie about how I destroyed this person. I probably couldn't do that because most of it would be legal, but you get the general idea. All I can do for the most part is let karma be karma, like she taught me. Do what I can, make people aware somewhat that it's not all gold cherries, no matter where you go. The only thing that makes the situation good or bad is the people. Like I said, it all comes down to people. I've been a lot of places, met a lot of people, I've met good people and bad people. But like I said, Sue was somebody special. She wasn't like me and you. She was way above that. Anybody who knows me will back me up on what I just said. And those of you who didn't, lucky for you, I promise her I wouldn't beat your ass.